Welcome to Media and Monuments, presented by Women in Film and Video in Washington, D.C. Media and Monuments features conversations with industry professionals speaking on a range of topics of interest to screen-based media makers.
On May 2nd, 2023, the Writers Guild of America, or WGA, went on strike. On July 14th, 2023, the Screen Actors Guild and American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, or SAG-AFTRA, also went on strike. As of this interview, recorded on August 18th, there is currently still no agreement reached with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, or the AMPTP. The WGA is apparently back in discussion with the AMPTP today, so we'll see how that goes. But for this conversation, we're focusing more on the SAG-AFTRA strike. I'm your host, Candice Bloch, and today I'm joined by three working actors who are SAG-AFTRA members from Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia for a discussion about the real and felt effects of this strike. We here at Women in Film and Video stand in solidarity with the strikes and hope to not only shed a light on these effects, but also discuss why the strikes are so important. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Towanda Underdue, Gabriel Kornbluh, and Keith Flippen to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Thanks, Candice.
To begin, and so that listeners can hear who is who, can you each introduce yourselves and let us know where you're based? So Towanda, you can start.
My name is Towanda Underdue. I'm based in Maryland.
I'm Gabriel Kornbluh, thanks, Candice, and I'm based in Washington, D.C.
Hey, I'm Keith Flippen, and I'm based in Fredericksburg, Virginia.
Women in Film and Video is based in D.C., and so we do tend to deal with the Mid-Atlantic a lot, so welcome. Great representation for all of that. Can you each tell us when you first became a member of SAG-AFTRA and your current involvement?
Sure. I joined in 2009. I joined AFTRA before the merger, and I started doing voiceover work, which is my bread and butter, and I do a lot of corporate educational work and background and stand-in work since then in the Washington Mid-Atlantic area.
This is Towanda. I joined in 2001, I believe. It's been around a while, and I currently serve on the local board of the Washington Mid-Atlantic, on the national board for SAG-AFTRA, and I'm also on the TV Theatrical Negotiating Committee.
And this is Keith. I became a SAG member in 1988, was eligible to join in 1992, and became an AFTRA member in 2002, just after the commercial strike. And then I've been here since they merged. And I am currently a board member of the Mid-Atlantic Local and sit on a couple of national committees. And I am currently the secretary of the local.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you all for everything you do. What were each of your first thoughts when you found out that SAG-AFTRA was officially on strike? And did you have any projects that you're working on that were halted? Obviously, you don't need to say specific names if they were struck projects currently.
I will say this was already a slow audition year for me. Typically, in a year, I'll read for 50 film and television projects. By the time July hits, about half of those reads have come in. Mm-hmm. And this year, because of the anticipation of the strike, I had only had 4 reads, which was a huge hit in opportunity. I was lucky enough to have a recurring role in a show shooting in Pittsburgh from December through February, which was nice to be able to put a little money away before this hit. But my first reaction was about time, to be honest with you. There were a lot of outstanding issues that have been fixed in incremental ways in past agreements. And I felt like this is the time. It's now or never. I was actually very happy to do that, although the work prospects were dismal.
Yeah. Towanda, Gabriel, how was it for you when you first found out?
I think it's a very solemn, hard thing, but it's also, as Keith said, I think I felt like it was the right thing to do and the necessary thing to do. I also think, given that we had an almost 98% strike authorization vote and the strength in knowing our deep solidarity around needing to fix this contract and tamp down essentially the wage theft and exploitation that was taking place in our industry with the advent of streaming, it felt like the right time, and also against the backdrop of the much needed resurgence of the labor movement in this country after the pandemic sort of laid bare the deep division amongst the needs of the working class and how they're not being met. It felt like a hardship, but something that is completely needed and part and parcel part of the growing labor movement that we're going through now. I think in terms of exposure and solidarity and consumer awareness and the fight that goes on and showing the public now that labor organizing and unions are becoming more of a boring deeper in the public consciousness, it was something that I felt was really needed and that we were ready to fight for.
And Towanda, how about you?
I come from a little different perspective. Being currently on the negotiating committee, being in LA for I believe like 5 weeks, literally sitting across the table from the studios and the executives and trying to negotiate a fair deal with them. We were optimistic going into the negotiations, but as it went on, we were seeing that they were not being very transparent with what they're making, trying to come in with a fair deal. They were playing a lot of games, and it got down to the last day. We even extended our contract a little, thinking that would move, and we extended it by 12 days, and 10 of those days, they didn't even want to meet with us. So it became apparent. We were there at 11:59 of the last day, literally sitting across the table from them. And it was obvious when they told us, we said we may strike, that they told us we were uncivilized for doing that.
Wow.
That we were about to go on strike. So we immediately left that session and we put in our vote, and we're like, we're going on strike because we need a fair deal, and they're playing games.
So SAG-AFTRA is asking for minimum earnings to keep up with inflation, for protections with respect to the use of AI, residuals for streaming services, improvements to wages and working conditions, and so on. You can see all the specific demands listed online at SAG-AFTRAstrike.org. But essentially, these are reasonable and necessary evolutions and updates to the contract. So to you, what are some of the most important reasons for this strike? Are there any that stand out among what is being asked, or is it collectively all are equally as important to you?
I mean, there's so many issues. We're covering the bases of all those that we serve, whether it be stunt performers, whether it be singers, dancers, audio, description. I mean, we're covering the bases here. We're talking about diversity, transparency in casting. There's so many services out there now that's kind of like a pay-to-play kind of a thing, which it shouldn't be. And with a lot of the casting offices closing, it's making it so that we, the performers, have to set up a studio in our own home at our own expense. And, a lot of that is going on, is on us, and it shouldn't be. And, we're fighting for justice in all of those areas. Of course, AI, that's a big topic. They're wanting to scan our images into their computers. And say for background, they pay you a half a day's pay, and they can use your image in perpetuity on any project, not just the one that you're working on, just forever. And of course, that's not right. Just making sure that we were asking for 2% of revenue sharing because the industry is moving more from network to streaming. And the studios actually don't want to tell us how many subscribers they have or how much revenue. And then they all say that they're bankrupt, but their CEOs are some of them are making $78,000 a day.
Right.
So how are you rewarding the CEO who is managing a business that's not profitable? That doesn't seem right. So there's quite a few things, but I'll let my colleagues speak on it, and we can have a conversation. But yes, a lot of this, we're fighting for the rights of all of our workers. Yes.
I think it's so important to highlight our incredible background community. I think that's where the rubber meets the road, and I think they're often one of the most disrespected and abused members of our performing community. And they are such the backbone of so many of these large productions that are really doing gangbusters for studios now. And, the digital double and scanning has already been happening. Fast Company just had this article come out the other day where there's all these anecdotes of background workers essentially being coerced and pressured to be scanned with sort of the false promise of you're going to get this amount of work, you're going to be featured in these many films or this many days on set, and then never hearing from them again on productions, Star Wars, Disney, Marvel type things. And I think it's also important to highlight our likeness is our worth, and the idea that not only would studios want to use that in perpetuity for such low pay without any form of consent or proper compensation is obviously incredibly unjust. But also, I want to shout out our incredible colleagues in every aspect of production, right? All of the workers on set, the tech on camera, in every department, wardrobe, makeup, all the folks who support us on set, our comfort, food, PAs, catering. This isn't just about, the background aspect isn't just about us. You think about a film like Oppenheimer or Barbie that has thousands of extras, period pieces, large-scale blockbusters. We're talking about days and weeks of work for makeup, for wardrobe, who are handling all those background workers. So if the ideal of these studios is to essentially eliminate our ability as workforce to show up and to earn and to represent ourselves, it's about us, but it's also about all of the other production workers on set who are going to lose the opportunity to work and to earn because they're trying to eliminate us as human vessels. So I always like to highlight that. I don't think a lot of people think about that. And I also just want to shout out our family in the WGA and in every production department who's suffering right now because there is so little work. And this is about solidarity between all of us because, especially when it comes to background, it has deep implications in terms of the AI usage for everyone on set and a reduction in our ability to work and earn.
These are clearly necessary things for moving forward that need to be figured out because this technology is continuing. As you pointed out, people are already being taken advantage of. And this is, again, highlighting the importance of unions in general and making sure that everyone gets fair and just treatment.
Absolutely.
We just want to increase the minimum so that we can, it can meet with inflation. Our dollar is not buying as much as it was a few years ago. And we're just asking for basics.
And over time, there's been a significant reduction in the take-home pay that actors receive because of residuals. The majority of the studios have been in pursuit of a method by which they can bypass traditional distribution models and the associated talent compensation costs that go along with those. And so streaming was a beautiful opportunity for them to do that, because rather than have a network rerun, a show goes to their siloed streaming service, and the rates of compensating actors in a hit show on a streaming service are much lower than they are to have a network primetime rerun. And AI offers that other opportunity. So personally, let me just say for myself, having been an actor for 30 years and having experienced what it was like to get network residuals on primetime reruns, those things would pay my bills, they would pay my rent, and now I'm working just as much, but the residuals payments are much, much lower. And I have to work that much harder. I have to work twice as much to earn overall just as much.
You're getting less, but the cost of living is continuing to go up.
That too. Yeah. That too. It is the net take-home pay, not just because of inflation, but because of these ways they bypass distribution. And also background. Nobody ever talks about this. People, background work actors do. They're principal actors to be. And if one is scanned as a background actor and they become a principal actor, have lines, they go on to do larger and larger roles, there is no sunset on the retention of those digital images. I shot a show for a universe of shows, let's just say.
Yeah.
And after we were done wrapping, I was headed back to the wagon. They say, no, you've got to go to the trailer. And what do you mean? And I stepped into the trailer, and there's this panorama, this diorama of cameras, and you have to stand in this position and this position. And I got to the end of it and I said, okay, I get that you need this for my episode, but how long does this company retain this image? And they said, you're the first person that's ever asked that question. I'll try to get you an answer. And I never got one. And that tells me that there is no limitation on how long they can retain the data.
That's
I am not data. An actor is not data.
Yes.
We are not being compensated for being turned into data. And that's the issue.
Exactly.
No, for sure. And it is also important to, as you've been highlighting with everyone involved in any production, that it is great to have these big famous names and A-list celebrities out there picketing and bringing attention to this strike. But the vast majority of members are people that are just working and struggling to pay bills and all of that. And that is who is most affected. Have any of you personally been out doing any picketing or being able to get to any of the demonstrations or sharing a lot on social media? How are you showing your support?
Wow, we've been doing everything.
Talking to 3 strike captains, Candice.
Yeah,
Yay!
Exactly. We're strike
I know.
captains.
We just want some specifics. What does a strike captain do compared to just someone
Oh, there
striking?
you go.
Someone just picketing. Yeah. So what is the role of a strike captain?
To keep people off the sidewalks, to make sure they stay hydrated, to make sure people don't impede traffic, making sure people are engaging the public in a positive way, representing the face of SAG-AFTRA and educating people in good spirit about our agreement and what we're asking, and to try and encourage them to apply pressure to the producers to get them to return to the table if they can. But other than that, it's all herding cats.
Yeah. It's an important job, especially when groups of people gather in large numbers. You do need people to corral a little bit and keep things safe and focused and all that. Also, it's important to note that none of you are in New York or LA. And a lot of times people, at least outside of the industry, feel like those are 2 hubs of what's going on right now. But there's plenty you can do outside of there as well.
I would just offer for those interested in our strike actions, to which people are invited to come and stand with us and leaflet and hold signs. They can go to SAG-AFTRAstrike.org.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you can look at the calendar there for the Mid-Atlantic local, Washington Mid-Atlantic local, and you can see upcoming events. But we've had leafleting events at the MPA in DC where they've had screenings of, what was it? Barbie.
Blue Beetle.
Blue Beetle. And there was another bug. Animal.
The Cat Noir.
Cat Noir, thank you. And Amazon HQ2 in Arlington. And then we just had a rally in Wilmington with a huge turnout of about 300 people.
And then we just
marvelous.
had a rally in Baltimore. And also, I was also on the picket line in LA as well when I was out there. And thousands of people came out. It was like a mob. It was just and it wasn't just SAG-AFTRA members. It was all of our sibling unions, WGA, DGA, teachers unions. I mean, I was almost getting emotional. There was so much support. They've been calling this a hashtag hot labor summer. And that's right. I mean, we're all out supporting each other, knowing that, I mean, we all have some of the same wants and desires. And we're a viable part of the labor force, and we all need to be seen and heard. As you were touching on, Candice, 86% of our membership does not make the $26,000 a year it takes to get health insurance. And sometimes in the press, they make it like it's all Hollywood and everything else. These are we're just people trying to make a living, pay our bills, put food on the table. And with all of these things that they're doing, especially with streaming, there are performers who have leads on shows that are making residuals that are $10 and things like that, as opposed to network, which I've worked network, streaming, all of it. I'm still getting my residuals from the network, those larger amounts. And then you look at the streaming one and you're like, what is happening here? Yeah. We need to be able to share in the revenues that these corporations are bringing in. And when they say they don't have any money, we see in the press that they're telling their shareholders, it's a blockbuster year and we've brought in billions. And then they come to the table and say, we have no money. Come on.
The public is certainly seeing through some of this as well. When you look at if they were to meet the demands, it's 1 or at most like 2% of their annual revenue or something to accomplish it. That is really highlighting this. It's interesting to think of what the sort of social currency they're losing, or if people are going to just forget once these are hopefully resolved in a just manner. But I personally find it encouraging that this is shedding a light on these massive imbalances and these injustices, and encouraging more unionizing and all these people to come together in solidarity and realize, yes, these big studios and companies and whatever they are, corporations of different types, they don't get their profits without the workers, like how important the workers are. Like what you all do is how they are successful. So I really appreciate that you all are striking and doing all of this and sacrificing yourself right now for the good of the future for yourselves and for future performers. So we really appreciate it as well. We definitely stand in solidarity.
Thanks, Candice.
There's been some instances for getting work in the meantime with things like the interim agreement, which it's not a waiver. It's an interim agreement. It's people that have, it is people that have agreed to the terms. For anyone who wants to see who has gotten that interim agreement, that is constantly updated again on SAG-AFTRAstrike.org. Have any of you had any fortune of being able to work on or get work with any interim agreement projects currently?
I actually am currently working on an interim agreement project. I have one of the leads in the movie. And so I've been taking advantage of that. And it's been great. And one thing that I want to highlight about it is what's in our interim agreement, which is in between when we finally get an agreement, the same terms that we were requesting from the studios are what's in this interim agreement. So what they say they can't do, independent filmmakers are able to sign it and say, yes, we can abide by what's in this agreement. But the big corporations say that they can't. No, you can do this.
It's proving that it's reasonable and viable. And you've got little ones. You've even got some as big as A24, which is still dwarfed by comparison to the Netflix and Disneys and Apples and Amazons. But it's encouraging. Maybe this will help more of those independent companies get more work and visibility and build up and prove, hey, if you treat people fairly, then you get the work.
And the studios can't use an excuse of, oh no, we can't meet these demands. They're unfair. No, people with way less budgets are using it and say, this we can do this. So yes, you can do it as well.
They've just increased some of the streaming rates to consumers as well. So they're automatically already getting more money. So if you have all that extra money, maybe give it to the people who are creating
that was funny
the projects that you're streaming.
Yeah, we would look at the trades, of course, reading it while we were negotiating. And as they said there was no more money, the next day we would see the subscriber rate went up again. It's like, really? You're all right. You're gonna make a deal. You're planning to get the money back that you're gonna give. It's like, come on, stop playing games.
Do you feel like that though? What you're hinting at there, that they're buffering that money right now? We don't know what's happening now, as today WGA is apparently in discussions again, and hopefully because all of the support of different unions help each other. I know SAG-AFTRA is not offering interim agreements to anything that conflicts with WGA and all of those their demands. Hopefully that will help push things forward. Do you guys feel like there's maybe imminent sometime by the fall or anything that might indicate when this might happen?
I can't speak to that, being still on the negotiating committee. Oh, right. There's some things we can't say, but the leadership of both unions are in constant communication, I will say.
And has there been a decent amount of respect that you feel back and forth in these conversations? Okay.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, it seems like everyone does want these to end, but it's just...
Yes, we want it to end. Go ahead, Keith.
Gabe posted an interesting article today about the pension systems of New York City and that they collectively... What was that, Gabe?
Just the push for the worry about solvency of the pension fund
and not ours, but the New York City workers' pension funds that are heavily invested in these producers.
Yeah, and basically saying to the studios, you really can't let this drag out without some deep damage here.
Mm-hmm. That's true. It affects more than people would even realize necessarily right off the bat. It's not just some actors. It's a lot of people beyond actors. It's where that web of connection continues beyond this industry as well.
The only thing we have as a membership and as a union is solidarity and resolution in the face of the AMPTP's resistance and their refusal to return to the table. There's nothing we can do to leverage them or coerce them back to the table other than to show that we are unified and that we are willing to wait this out. And the nice thing when a city says, hey, look, we have hundreds of millions of dollars invested in you guys, and if you keep this up, it's going to make us rethink that. That kind of pressure is what may change their minds. Otherwise, we're just waiting. And if this is all going to end up in our favor anyway, the producers are just delaying the inevitable.
Yes.
And I believe it is going to end up in our favor because we're not asking for anything absurd. It all makes sense.
Yeah.
What we're asking for just makes sense.
Do any of you want to talk a little bit about the importance of things like the Entertainment Community Fund in helping keep people able to pay some bills while all of these things are going on, and how that helps you all continue staying in solidarity and not having to break because you're unable to pay a bill or eat or anything?
That's right. Contributions are wonderful to the Entertainment Community Fund. Also, the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is accepting donations as well to help our performers here, while they're on strike, to pay their bills and manage until the strike is over.
So it helps everyone continue as long as necessary, and because it's so important to not give in. And I know that nobody seems like in any of these communities or unions, nobody wants to give in. Nobody is. They're all standing strong together. And as Keith was saying, it's only a matter of time. They're delaying the inevitable at this point.
And every little bit helps. Nothing is too small. I know recently we had some high-profile names give some big donations, and that's greatly appreciated. But every gesture is greatly appreciated. Yes.
Sharing our stories and spreading the gospel. That I'm so appreciative that those pieces up, Candice, that just fighting the stigma that we are a group of laborers that are wealthy or famous or elites, that when in fact we are a majority working class labor force. And again, just helping us fight the stigma that it's not just a Hollywood issue, with all love to our beautiful LA local, and that artists and creatives are your friends and family in every corner of the country, small towns, big cities. And we need support, amplification, and platforming everywhere.
Not only if you are, again, that kind of goes back to the solidarity and support with things like picketing and social media presence and on all of that you don't have to be a member. You could be a future member. You could be someone who just respects proper treatment of humans, any of that. But please do what you can. And we're going to link in the show notes all of this stuff as well, where you can go to donate and find things. But again, SAG-AFTRA-strike.org has all of that information as well, and is very up on all of those different things. Do you think in general, like this, Gabriel had brought it up earlier, but this is highlighting again about unions in general. Do you think this is maybe like a turning point in our society at all for other industries and everything getting involved? Or is it one of those unfortunate, once this is wrapped up, people will just dive right back into the way things were? We knew that even the pandemic, we're like, this is going to change things. And so much went right back to the same from before. How do you feel in terms of what this is going to be as a potential turning point moving forward?
I think this is a pivotal point in our history, and we'll look back at this moment and see that it's going to change the landscape for future generations. I mean, there's so many labor unions on strike, fighting, winning deals and things like that, and it hasn't been this way in decades. So I think, things are going to change from here on. I don't think we're ever going to go back to the old way of doing things.
I also think at our labor actions, one of the great silver linings of community and connection is that we have members in our local, because we're located where we are, on the borderline of right to work states and union states, that people seeing this solidarity changes the trajectory of their career path and in favor of becoming full members of a union that represents them and that helps support their ability to earn a living. And I think people are seeing that everywhere. This is epidemic of loneliness, I think, that's come out of the pandemic, that has a lot of us feeling isolated. And to see that coming together not only is a thing that satisfies our need to belong, but can change things for the better is a powerful message. And I think that is what's spreading across the country right now. And I think that's what we exemplify. We and the WGA and the Teamsters, who just satisfied their agreement with UPS, and what we're seeing with the hotel workers in LA and with the flight attendants union and with so many others that have stood by our side as we picketed and as we've had strike actions. It really is an awakening, I think, for the entire country.
Which personally I think is great. Yeah.
Just to touch on what Keith was saying too,
Mm-hmm.
when we were in LA, the hotel workers were going to go on strike. Their contract was actually ending on the same day that our contract was ending for SAG-AFTRA. And in solidarity with them, when they were going to go to strike, we literally checked out of the hotel and went to a different one. Literally the next, because we supported our union siblings here, brothers and sisters. So yeah, exactly. We're all in it together. We're like, okay. And with like hours notice, it's like, nope, they're going to strike. We're leaving. We packed up. And the next morning we're like, where are we going?
It's great. It's a great, strong community of people. Because also the hotels, that's the thing your community deals with all the time. You're traveling a lot for work and everything.
And everyone's got a piece of everything. They do, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And our members are prepared to show up at their strike actions
absolutely.
And their labor actions. And we've already been having those conversations extensively. It's a great coming together, not just for our members with ourselves, but with so many other people fighting similar fights.
Because even before SAG-AFTRA went on strike, we were on the picket line for WGA, DGA, and all of the other unions as well.
Thank you for all of what you've been doing. We definitely hope for a fair and just resolution very soon, maybe by the time this comes out, but we'll see. And yeah, so for any listeners looking for ways to support the strikes, SAG-AFTRA has, as we said before, been encouraging members, future members, non-members, everyone to join demonstrations, pickets, be vocal online about your support. Again, there's no boycotts right now, so continue to do all that. There's the Entertainment Community Fund. We'll link all of the things in our show notes as well, but there's places you can donate, which provides emergency assistance. And for all the continually updated and current info, like who has interim agreements and such, and even a social media toolkit, you can go to SAG-AFTRAstrike.org, and this will all again be in our show notes. So thank you so much for all of what you do and continuing to fight the good fight and stand in solidarity. And thank you so much for talking with us today.
Well, and thank you, Candice, for your support.
Thanks, Candice.
And
Thank you,
for this
Candice.
Opportunity to speak to your...
Thank you for the opportunity.
And it's all because of women in film and video.
Hear, hear.
Yay.
More power to women in film and video.
Yes.
Thank you, women in film and video.
Thank you for listening to Media and Monuments, a service of women in film and video. Please remember to review, rate, and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. For more information about WIF, please visit our website at www.wif as in Frank, V as in Victor.org. Media and Monuments is produced by Sandra Abrams, Candice Bloch, Brandon Ferry, and Tara Jabari, and edited by Emma Klein, with audio production and mix by Steve Lack Audio. For more information about our podcast, visit mediaandmonuments.com.